Is the NFL season scripted?
Aaron was telling me about how the NFL is rigged and how every year he used to get a script. Week 1, you'll do this. Week 2, you're going to have a hamstring injury.
Hey, NFL script writers, we got a couple of cool ideas that you may want to use. So, let us check out 10 scripts that the NFL could use for the 2023 season. Stefon Diggs falls out with Josh Allen in Buffalo. Josh Allen has done a nice job of downplaying the squabble that his star wide receiver Stefon Diggs appeared to have, either with head coach Sean McDermott, the Bills organization, or both this offseason. But I tend to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. And this would not be the first time that we've seen Diggs flame out with the team. Remember how his time in Minnesota ended? I know the Bills have Super Bowl aspirations, and he and Allen seem to be buddy-buddy, at least for now, but Vikings team Diggs grew out of favor with a legitimate contender too. Who's to say that his old habits don't die hard in Buffalo? That's just the kind of melodrama we've come to expect out of Diggs. And honestly, the modern NFL as a whole at this point.
You don't want to lose any game, but we've lost for a couple years at this point. And we've been trying to get over the hump, and obviously it calls for a lot of frustration.
Burrow Mahomes Trilogy. Well, the smart money says that this one is coming whether you want it to or not, because Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes have really established themselves as the two preeminent quarterbacks in the AFC, and honestly, the NFL as a whole. Thus far, Mahomes has had the better career, there's no denying that, but he does have a few more years under his belt than Joe. On the other hand, Burrow has beaten Mahomes 3 out of 4 times already, twice in the regular season and one in the AFC Championship game back in 2021. Mahomes, however, got his revenge this past season when he and the Chiefs ended up besting Burrow's Bengals during last year's AFC Championship game en route to his second Super Bowl victory, something that has eluded Burrow thus far in his career. Do not be shocked if we see the postseason trilogy come to fruition this offseason, not only because these two teams will be favorites in the AFC, but also because that would be one juicy storyline for the NFL to roll out there. Think 2020's version of Brady versus Manning. That is what we are seeing manifest itself right before our eyes. The rise of Justin Fields. 2022 was a big year for Bears fans. Somehow, they managed to witness one of their more exciting seasons in recent memory, which honestly isn't saying much. But nevertheless, that was largely thanks to the giant leap that Justin Fields took. And they were able to secure the #1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, which they flipped for DJ Moore and some draft assets, really setting this team up for another big step forward this year. Really, that was quite the combination they pulled off. Now heading into the 2023 season, everything is set up for Justin Fields to emerge as one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. He should continue to improve as a passer, especially with a legitimate #1 option and more. And it's more than likely that he continues to torch opposing defenses with his explosive running ability. Beyond being an electric watch, Fields just seems like a great guy to root for, one that the NFL will happily prop up and market. So why wouldn't we see his emergence as a superstar be one of the scripts that the league rolls out this year? Aaron Rodgers' revenge season. Hell hath no fury like a scorned Aaron Rodgers. That's what the, well, at least Jets fans and the NFL, who would love that storyline, are banking on this year. To be fair, we've seen it before. Rodgers has proven himself time and time again over the years to be one of the most spiteful competitors the game has ever seen. Just ask Bears fans who watched the former Packers quarterback absolutely dominate their team for over a decade. Now that he has a whole new franchise to spite in his former team, it'll be fascinating to see what kind of fire has been lit under Rodgers in New York, especially with the parallels drawn to how he and his predecessor, Brett Favre, played out the twilights of their careers. We could be witnessing a double revenge tour that could be truly something else. Kirk Cousins exercises his demons. While Aaron Rodgers goes on his revenge tour, another big-name quarterback may find himself scripted for a slightly different story. More of a redemption arc of sorts. The Minnesota Vikings have been one of the better teams in the league since Kirk Cousins came to town, and last year had the makings of a special season thanks to the connection he built with Justin Jefferson. But for some reason, their defense took a huge step back, and it really limited their ceiling come playoff time. Having brought in Brian Flores as the new DC, that issue should be largely mitigated, leaving a great opportunity for Cousins to lead the Vikings on a deep playoff run, and maybe even make it over the hump and hoist the Lombardi Trophy. The NFL would be particularly interested in this script after seeing how well received Kirk Cousins was on the popular quarterback Netflix series.
Did you know the season-ending knee injury that Tom Brady suffered in the 2008 season led to a ban on hitting quarterbacks below the knee? And Dad is forever grateful.
Demar Hamlin's comeback story. For anyone who's living under a rock last year, Hamlin suffered a traumatic cardiac arrest during what was initially one of the most highly anticipated games of the year between his Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. But thanks to the swift assistance and expertise of the medical staff on site, Hamlin was revived and has since made a full recovery, and is now expected to be back in action this season, meaning that 2023 has all the makings of an epic Demar Hamlin comeback story. Maybe Hamlin ends up forcing a turnover in a key moment, or maybe he emerges as one of the top contributors on the Bills defense all year long. It's all a matter of how the NFL writes it up. OBJ wreaks havoc in Baltimore. There are two things that Odell Beckham Jr. knows how to do, and that, my friends, is catch footballs and wreak havoc. Everywhere that the star receiver has been, whether it be a big market like New York or a small market like Cleveland, or even just an American Airlines flight, OBJ will find a way to stir the pot. That's just who he is. The only reason that things didn't erupt for him in LA is because he was there for such a short amount of time that you can't even call it a cup of coffee with a straight face. Now that Beckham has made the decision to pair up with Lamar Jackson and join the Ravens, fans are excited to see what the Ravens will look like with some legitimate talent at the wide receiver position for once. But all those who bleed black and purple down in the DMV best be careful what they wish for, because knowing OBJ's track record, it is nearly a foregone conclusion that even if he does manage to perform on the field, he's going to find a way to stir up some chaos in the process. And while the NFL might not want to admit it, there's no doubt that they like their product being the center of attention. Something that seems to come with the territory for a guy like OBJ. Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley become a top duo. Now that the Urban Meyer stink is off the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we saw some extremely promising flashes down the stretch of last season, expectations are going to be the highest they've been in Duval in some time, especially coming off that ridiculous playoff push and subsequent comeback in the wildcard round against Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers when they trailed by basically infinite points and still managed to seal a victory in the second half. Obviously, as their former #1 overall pick and being a guy that was viewed as a generational talent, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the focal point of that attention, no doubt about it. But you know, there is one name that has almost been forgotten about in all the excitement. Calvin Ridley. It has been 2 years now since he's played a full season due to his mental health hiatus and his gambling suspension. But people forget, Ridley had really burst onto the scene as a potentially elite receiver. With Lawrence looking poised to emerge as the next great gunslinger in the NFL, the numbers that these two put up could be monstrous. And the Jaguars might just become relevant once again. Sean Payton flops, and Russell Wilson is ousted in Denver. Sean Payton heading to Denver to take on the reclamation project that is Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos offense got a lot of hype during the offseason. But you know, that's far from a guarantee that things will work out. I mean, that offense was so bad last year that it's hard to imagine fixing it's going to be a simple procedure. Payton hasn't done himself any favors thus far either by coming out and setting the expectations high by telling USA Today that he's going to be pissed off if this is not a playoff team. Then the oft-mercurial head coach raised the stakes in what was honestly a shocking move by openly criticizing the previous Denver coaching regime, telling USA Today, everybody's got a little stink on their hands, it's not just Russell. It was a poor offensive line. It might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That is how bad it was. Hackett wasn't the only one that he called out either. He continued to cast blame across the entire organization for the spectacle that the season became, saying that wasn't his fault, talking about Wilson. That was the parents who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination on the head coach, the GM, George Payton, the president, Damani Leach, and everybody else who watched it all happen. By the way, for anyone wondering at home, yes, those are the two guys that still lead the Broncos organization and actually hired Payton. Man, if he does not deliver, this could all blow up in spectacular fashion for Sean. And you have to think that the powers that be in the NFL league office, who have had a long-standing feud with the former Saints head coach, going all the way back to the Bountygate scandal that he was involved in New Orleans, must be licking their chops at this idea. Anthony Richardson starts and is a top rookie. The NFL is always in the market for a new star player, and having another top quarterback emerge in Indianapolis, where Peyton Manning played the bulk of his career, is a mighty exciting proposition, especially considering what a disaster it has been for the Colts, who have been one of the league's most ravenous fan bases. Drafting Anthony Richardson was obviously a high-risk proposition, as his production in college wasn't really anything to write home about, at least not on any sort of consistent basis. Let's face it, Richardson was only the full-time starter for 1 year, and during that final season at UF, he completed just 53.8% of his passes for 2,549 yards and 17 touchdowns against 9 interceptions. But he does deserve a nod for chipping in over 650 yards on the ground, not to mention an additional 9 touchdowns. And I mean, if you watch Richardson's tape, his athleticism just jumps out at you. His talent was and is obvious. Of course, he will need to continue to develop his touch and his ability to read the game, but with his legs and the downright ridiculous arm strength, he has all the makings of a star. But which scripted NFL storyline do you think will happen this year? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.